Hi guys, this is Appleplex here, and today we're going to start the making of an ICEBOW guide video series. So a lot of people have been messaging me on Discord asking me how to play this deck. Now I'm not a pro at this deck, but I'm pretty good with it, and so I thought I'd make a video series showing you guys exactly how I play the deck. I might be wrong, and you know what, if I am, well then we can all learn from it. Thing about ICEBOW is that it's arguably the highest skill cap deck in the game, and so I can't really make one video on it showing you exactly what to do against specific matchups or stuff like that unless I have like a 2-hour long video. And so obviously it's going to be a video series. This first video is going to be just the basics of it. So ICEBOW consists of obviously 8 cards. We have the Xbow, the Rocket, the Tornado, the Ice Whiz, the Mega Minions, Skeletons, the Ice Golem, and the Log. And these 8 cards have a lot of synergy around them because the main defense in this deck is the Ice Whiz NATO. Against big pushes, you have Rocket NATO. And then the offense is based on the Xbow and the Mega Minion to take out stuff like, I don't know, Valkyries, Knights, Ice Golems, Infernal Towers, etc. So let's go over the cards. Xbow is your win condition. It's also your defensive tower, your defensive building. So you have to figure out a way to know when to set it up on offense and when to set it up on defense. So one of the basic things is where to put the Xbow. So if you're attacking the right side, you want to put the Xbow 1 tile back from the bridge and 1 tile right of center of the bridge. On the left side, it's the exact same thing, but 1 tile to the left of the center of the bridge. Now, when you're playing an Xbow on defense, this is where it gets a little trickier. So, the anti-fireball position, when they have fireball, can be either 3 tiles from the bridge, opposite from the tower you have the most damage taken on, and if they cannot fireball it. This position is going to be used mainly against other siege decks like Xbow and Mortar, sometimes against Hog Cycle and stuff like that, or even Royal Giant, because it RG 2.9 cycle, because it pulls the RG. However, you're going to be using the other placement, which is a bit farther on the other side of the tower you have the most damage on, and that is so they can't fireball it, but also so they can't place, like, say, a wizard or a musketeer at the bridge and snipe your Xbow. So if you're doing, for example, if you play it in the high position against Hog 2.6, you want to have that log ready just in case if they put a musketeer to snipe. Now there's also an anti-poison position, which is also anti-poison, anti-lightning, and anti-earthquake now since they added that into the game. And that's going to be all the way over on your other side of the other side of the arena, and it's going to be right next to the tower, on top of the tower, 2 tiles to the right of center on it. That's the main position. Now, sometimes they have poison or they have lightning, and they also have a building like a goblin hut or a furnace that you need to snipe with your Xbow. You want to place it 1 tile up and 1 tile to the right of the anti-poison, lightning, or earthquake position because it will still work basically. And you can keep going with that, but if you go too far, you're going to get sniped with something as simple as spear goblins or archers or something stupid like that. So you really don't want to go any higher than 3 tiles up from the bridge unless it's a weird situation. But you should have a lot of creativity with this deck. Alright, next card. So, the next card we're going to talk about is the Rocket. The Rocket is your secondary win condition. The thing about the Rocket is that at Tournament Standard it does 432, level 13 on ladder does 628. But you don't want to just cycle Rockets mindlessly. That's what I see a lot of noobs doing when they pick up this deck at the start. And this deck is based around getting that Expo lock at the beginning, then gaining an elixir advantage, and then rocket cycling in double elixir. And so when you rocket cycle, you want to make sure you have adequate defense for whatever the opponent has. So if they have a RG, you want to have preferably an Expo down in the anti-lightning position and an Ice Whiz NATO in hand. Also, Rocket can be used on defense. I usually use Rocket against Ram Rider and Balloon, and even P.E.K.K.A Iwi's pushes, because that's really hard to take out without the Rocket. And be creative with it, but try not to chief pat your Rockets. Don't miss your Rockets. If you miss your Rocket, you're in for a tough time. That's why this deck is so hard, because if you miss something once, if you miss a pull in the Tornado, if you mess up your Xbow, you probably are going to lose the game. So the next card we're going to talk about is the Ice Whiz. The Ice Whiz is your main defensive card in this deck. It's going to be paired with Tornado. You really don't want to use your Ice Whiz without Tornado, otherwise it doesn't get value. Like, let's say you play an Ice Whiz at the bridge, it gets 300 damage, but for 3 Elixir, that's pretty trash. I mean, a Knight could get more than that. So, you really want to use your Ice Whiz only on defense or for support on an Xbow push, and when you pair it with NATO, it slows everything down, allowing you to get spell damage with your Rocket or your Log on it, and even put Mega Minions in there to get DPS before it gets taken out. Like, for example, let's say you can put a Mega Minion down on a slowed Mega Minion, and your Mega Minion will prevail because there's an Ice Whiz there. Even though the Ice Whiz doesn't do much damage, it's an amazing support troop, especially when paired with NATO. Alright, let's talk about the Mega Minion now. So the Mega Minion, it's a great card. In my opinion, it's a bit OP. The most annoying thing about a Mega Minion is actually when it's against your Xbow, because it can snipe your Xbow without being targeted by the tower, which sucks. But you can't really place a Mega Minion on top of it to stop it. So your Mega Minion is mainly going to be used for taking out high health but not too high health troops, because it's their DPS troop. And you're going to use it to take out Musketeers, E-Wizes, Wizards, Witches, all the 4-5 Elixir support troops. And also, you're going to be using her at the bridge to take care of troops that are targeting your Xbow. For example, if they place a Mega Minion, like I said, you can put Skeleton's Mega Minion. If they have a Baby Dragon, you put Ice Golem Mega Minion on top of it, and it kills it, right? That's the main thing. We're going to save the Tornado for last, because it's the most complicated. So we're going to talk about Ice Golem. So Ice Golem is your main kiting card. You're going to use the Ice Golem on defense to mainly kite support troops away from big pushes. Huge Golem push, huge Golem push is coming down. The Ice Golem is your best bet to get that Knight Witch, Lumberjack away from, away from the push. Baby Dragon, it might not work so well, but for most troops, the Ice Golem will pull it. You will want to learn the timing and the tiles and not mess up pulls, because messing up pulls is the best way to get damage on your towers without you needing damage on your towers. But you should really work on your Ice Golem pulls and knowing what and what doesn't pull in certain positions, because a lot of the cards are different. We'll go over that later. For the Skeletons. Skeletons are your main, or your secondary kiting troop. They work a lot against air troops. In Lava Hound deck, especially Lava Loon, you can pull minions and Mega Minions away from your tower, even to the opposite lane. You can even do it with Baby Dragon if you time it right, because what happens is the Skeletons will split, and the Baby Dragon will hit one and then go after the two, or vice versa. So, you want to also, you can use these for surrounding support troops and killing them for a +3, even +4 elixir trade, like an execution or something like that. They are very important for getting positive elixir advantages. Also, you can use them to stop a hog for a +3 trade and go in with an Xbow attack. Alright, we're down to our last two. The Log. The Log, 84 damage, tournament standard. 112 at level 12, just in case you have it underleveled, and 123 at level 13 on ladder. And you really want to use the Log to not only to chip away at the tower, you almost always will be chipping away with the Log for this deck. But you want to also use it in cases where you don't think it would do much. Sometimes a Log is all you need to reset a Prince, a Dark Prince, a Ram Rider, whatever. It acts as kind of like a snowball, but it's better than a snowball in this deck because it synergizes so well with all the other cards. For example, Log Skeletons, Log Ice Golem, Log Mega Minion, even Log Ice Whiz will do work against some of the the biggest pushes or even the support troops in the game that need to be taken out. And now we're finally to our NATO. So I honestly think the next video in this series will have to be solely on the NATO, because there's so many interactions with the NATO, and that's why the NATO is probably one of the highest skill cap individual cards in the entire game. You're mainly going to be pairing the NATO with the ICEBOW and the Rocket in this deck, but you can also do prediction NATOs when your Xbow needs to get a lock. You can, and obviously you can activate King Tower. And that's the main thing. You have to know what troops can get to the King Tower. Like, for example, you might know this, but you can pull a Golem to the King Tower if you're on the right tile with the NATO, but only if they put it in the back. If they put it in the back corner, you can't do it unless you log NATO it. You can pull Miners to King Towers as long as they're two tiles away from the safe spot. You can pull Hogs to King Towers as long as there's not an Ice Golem on the other side of it. You can pull, you can even pull Lumberjacks, Knights. You can even pull E-Wizes and Executioners to your King Tower if you really have no other troop to activate it with. You cannot pull P.E.K.K.A.s. You cannot pull Ram Riders, stuff like that. And you can pull stuff like Bandits and Balloons as well, but you have to know how much damage you're going to take from them. And in those cases, you're going to take quite a lot trying to activate King Tower. When you're doing it with a Lumberjack, you take 400 damage at Tournament Standard, right? So you have to know what you're going into and know exactly how much damage you're going to take when activating the King Tower, because ICEBOW is a deck where you really have to know the numbers of all the cards, and not just your cards, every other card in the game. Especially at Tournament Standard, because that's where you're going to be playing this deck a lot, and you see it on ladder, but honestly, it's not an amazing ladder deck. It's more of a classic challenges, grand challenges deck because of its drawing capabilities. You should be able, now they say you should be able to draw every matchup. It's not really true. There are some matches you will definitely lose against, like, I don't know, Fireball Bait. You have 0 chance of winning against random 8 tank decks, but you should be able to draw most matchups, even tough ones like P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider with Lightning. You should be able to still draw them. Alright, let's move on to general strategy. Okay, so general strategy with this deck is as follows. You want to get 1 or 2 locks in single elixir and bring the tower down to about 3 rockets range. Tournament Standard, it's about 1300. On ladder, it's about 2000. Now on ladder, the spell to the hit points of the tower ratio is a bit lower. So you're able to spell cycle out more easily on ladder than in tournament level standard. So you really want to be careful about cycling spells in tournament level standard. While on ladder you can be a little more free with it, but you still have to go through the same strategy and the same mindset. Don't forget the log. The log is very good, you can cycle 3 logs in a matter of seconds and get 242 damage at tournament level standard, which is quite a lot. But yeah, so mainly you're gonna be getting an Xbow lock. The first Xbow of the game should be played relatively early. The first offensive Xbow should be played relatively early, except for a couple situations. Like, if they play a Golem in the back, you can Xbow opposite lane, but unlike 2.9, you don't have a Tesla. So, it could end up in a tower trade, unless your opponent's trash. And chances are they're not. So, you're probably going to lose your tower. And even if you don't, it's going to be low enough. And even then, they can still just Mega Minion your Xbow. And if you defend it, you're definitely going to lose your tower. Because you can't take out the Mega Minion for a positive elixir trade. So, yeah, you want to play a defensive Xbow in the anti-lightning position if they play a Golem in the back. And then hopefully you want to NATO into King Tower as well. And then set up, obviously, with an Xbow offense. But against most matchups, you're going to want to Xbow early on to just see what they have. Some ICEBOW players, like Sophia K, they'll go Ice Wiz, Xbow the bridge first play of the game, especially if they have a bad cycle. I don't like to do this, it's too risky for me, But if that's your style, go for it, you know? It's a very creative deck. You can do what you want with it. There are many different ways to play it. So anyways, after you get those locks in single elixir, by the way, it's okay to spend a bit more elixir than your opponent and slightly over defend your Xbow in single elixir. And once you get to double elixir, your playstyle should become a lot more defensive, but you still want to control the game. So in single elixir, you're aggressively controlling the game, but in double elixir, you're defensively controlling the game. So in double elixir, you don't have to really worry about saving certain cards for other cards unless you really need them, because you have so many answers. But you still should not play recklessly either. Most of the time, if I have the tower down to 3 rockets, I will just defensive Xbow in the anti-whatever spell they have, and just rocket cycle out. If it's a deck that I can't rocket cycle out, for example, a balloon deck, balloon cycle, which is actually a really tough matchup, even though it seems easy, or there are matchups that you can't rocket cycle out. There are matches you kind of have to rocket cycle out. For example, bait is one that you just have to rocket cycle out because there's no way you're getting another lock. So, and the matches that you shouldn't rocket but you have to win, those are the toughest matchups. That's why P.E.K.K.A, Ram Rider, and RG Lightning are so hard. So anyways, that's what you have to do. Now, there are situations where you're going to be going from single elixir to double elixir. And depending on how much elixir you're at, and how much elixir the opponent is at, you may want to set up an Xbow offensively at the start of double elixir, because you get an elixir boost, and you can use that elixir boost on offense before your opponent gets to use it on defense. Sometimes you can do that, but other times it's best to just go for a defensive Xbow. In later videos, we'll examine what kind of matchups you have and what you should do against them, but for now, let's stick to the basic rules. In single elixir, you don't really want to waste your Ice Whiz or your Mega Minion, and you want to set up an Xbow as soon as possible, as long as your opponent doesn't do something crazy like play a Golem in the back. But obviously, you can play an Xbow almost any other time. If they play a Night Witch in the back, you go Xbow opposite lane, because that means they have Golem, and if they have Giant, we'll rip you. But if they have Golem, they won't have enough elixir to Golem up, as long as you play it immediately in the opposite lane. As for starting plays with ICEBOW, Skeletons, Log, if you have Ice Whiz or NATO in cycle, Ice Golem is okay, but you really want to save your Ice Whiz and your Mega Minion as long as you can. Now, if you have to play one of them, I usually wait about 3 seconds and then play it, because if you play your Ice Whiz in the back and they play a Golem in the back opposite lane, you're basically screwed. You're probably going to lose the tower because your Ice Whiz is so crucial in defending those pushes. So be careful if you're starting plays. And then to cap up double elixir, you want to defend, rocket cycle out, occasionally set up an Xbow offensively if you feel you're high and the other opponent is low on elixir, or if their Xbow counter is out of cycle. But generally, you want to stay defensive in double elixir, as you can pretty much defend almost anything someone throws at you. So that's the first video. It's basic strategy. We'll go over Tornado Tech in the next video, and then after that we'll start going over some of the more difficult matchups. Thank you for watching.